Welcome to On Sci Fi, a bi-weekly podcast from Jackrow Productions. The following podcast may contain strong language or adult themes and as such may not be suitable for younger listeners. If you have any questions, comments, have a specific topic you'd like to hear our panel discuss, or would simply like a shout out, find us on Facebook by searching Hi On Sci Fi. Episode 1, Meet the Geeks. Recorded Thursday the 19th of October 2017. So, welcome to Hi On Sci Fi, and this, the very first inaugural episode. So I thought we'd start with episode 4. And if you've got an issue with that, talk to George Lucas. Or as I call him, George King Lucas. Anyway, so with us today, he's a madman with a box. It's Sean Oxenham. Hello. Yes, hello, Sean. And she's got a bad feeling about this. It's Helen Payne.
Hello.
And setting my phasers on fun, it's me, Stu Jackson. So, as you can tell, right from the start, we've each got our specialist areas. Sean, Doctor Who. Obviously,
Doctor Who.
You're a Whovian.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yep, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, why?
This is a difficult thing to answer. I think arguably it's nostalgia. But when you look at, if I get really, really poncy straight into...
Oh, yeah.
straight
Launch into ponciness.
If you look at the sci-fi genre as a whole, Doctor Who for me stands out particularly because of a lot of its moral ambiguity that's sprinkled throughout its various history. Right from the beginning, there's not knowing who the main character is for a start puts you on a footing that you can't really know what to expect from the whole situation.
So it's the man of mystery, kind of. It's the mysterious air that's drawn you into it.
It's that. It's also not a story about a superhero or about an authority, although it's called the Doctor, which particularly if you're from Britain and you tend to think about anybody as having a doctor or sir or anything like that above their name, they must be of some importance. But having somebody who's an old man, dressed in Edwardian clothes, going around time and space and doing things that you wouldn't always think bad, but you wouldn't always think good either. In the very first story in the
An Unearthly Child
storyline, of which my previous drama school teacher, Jeremy Young, was the first ever villain.
Wow.
He was that caveman you see right at the end of the story.
That caveman. The one you just see the silhouette of in the end of the episode.
Him. That's Jeremy Young.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, bit of, claim to fame there. We're name dropping already.
Sorry, just a little bit.
Wait, less than 5 minutes in, and we're name dropping.
But yeah, at the end, it's not him actually. It's a different caveman who William Hartnell's Doctor almost kills. He goes to pick up a rock to obviously do him in, and it's Ian Chesterton who stops him and says, "What are you doing?" And having that from the very beginning of the entire setup is so much more intriguing. That rather than having the black and white lines of here are the good guys, here are the bad guys. It's all very morally ambiguous, and that's so important, I think, in a genre that ultimately works as allegories for the world we actually live in.
So the way you've described that then, I mean, would it be fair to say that you were into sci-fi and then came across Doctor Who, or is it actually you came across Doctor Who and then that's led you into... Because obviously, I mean, Doctor Who's not your only sci-fi passion, is it?
I'd say Who was my introduction to science fiction as a whole. I mean, first time I ever saw Doctor Who was Genesis of the Daleks. I was 6 years old, and I was like, I love this. This is fantastic. And it was the benchmark, if you like, for everything else within the sci-fi genre. That was how I measured good science fiction.
Right.
Thereafter, and indeed writing as a key form of a film or television series.
Okay, just to apologise to our listeners, if Sean sounded like he was breaking up there. It's because Sean is in fact joining us via satellite link up. Ooh. Which is a posh way of saying he's on Skype. Because we're coming live from Swindon. Yes, home of Swindon Comic Con.
Yes.
And
the Swindon
Sci-Fi Connection.
Yeah, and the Swindon Fringe.
And the Swindon Fringe, which is less of a sci-fi connection.
I know, but it might develop.
But if James Bond counts as sci-fi, which there is an argument for, then the Spectrum building in Swindon was used in a James Bond movie.
It was, yeah.
The name of which I've just forgotten, obviously. But yeah, no, that's cool. So Helen.
Hello.
Helen, our Star Wars aficionado. Geek, indeed.
Geek chic.
Sith or light side?
Oh,
Sith
well,
or Jedi?
Well, I think I am a light sider. I was going to say Sith, but no, I am a light sider. But you like to flirt with the dark side occasionally. I think that's me. So
would you be call them grey or neutral?
Actually, yeah, I think I would probably fit better. I think I'd be, if there was a spectrum, well, in fact, there is a spectrum, and I would be probably light grey.
Light grey, okay.
Kind of maybe a duck egg colour.
Okay, interesting.
Are you calling yourself a duck egg Jedi here?
I've officially trademarked it. I am a duck egg Jedi.
Yeah. Any person in the world with a pink lightsaber.
Oh, no. Oh, because they ask you that question, don't they? They always say, "Oh, what colour would you like your lightsaber to be?"
Black.
Well, no, I'd like it to be like a lava lamp. So as you move it, it changes colours, or you get the little bits of kyber crystal
from the 70s. Yeah. Which lightsabers are from the 70s?
Well, that's true. And actually, I don't know why they didn't think of that for the films, but it's
because of budgets.
Well, that's true.
And special effects.
That is true. It's a lot easier having a stick than a lava lamp.
I mean, it's interesting. You go back and watch the original, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but it looks like Luke is running around with a fluorescent light bulb in his hand.
He probably was, to be fair.
Something similar.
Yeah, he probably was.
Or very, very special effects where they just scratched onto the cellulose. Well, that was the original lightning and lasers. They just scratched a line onto cellulose.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
See, learn something new every day. I didn't know.
Full of information on this show, folks. So cool. So, anything either of you would like to ask me about Star Trek? Because I am the I'm the king of Trekkies. I am.
Ooh,
there's nothing I don't know.
What should we ask?
Well, I have an interesting question. Which era are you a specific era of Star Trek more? Let me rephrase that. That's shite. Are you geared more towards a specific era of Star Trek, or is it just Star Trek as a whole? I mean, are we talking right from the Shatner days to actually even before the Shatner days, the pilot episode with
the Cage?
I forget his name.
Yes. Oh yeah, and he went on to play Jesus as well, although that was his last big role. Right more recently, through Enterprise to Discovery, or do you stick to one particular era? No, I've got to say I'm a fan of the entire universe that's been created, and all times within it. I have my own favourite series, but that's more of a favourite series rather than the time frame.
So would it be fair to say you've got a preferred crew?
Not even a preferred crew. I've got particular characters that I like, particular characters I relate to. But I mean, Deep Space Nine is my favourite, and I know that's a very controversial choice. But I like the darkness of it. I like the fact that it's willing to go where no Star Trek episode went before. See what I did there?
Smooth, Stu.
But Discovery, I've got to say, Discovery is catching up fast. Have either of you managed to catch Discovery?
Not had a chance yet to watch it. No.
I've only watched the pilot.
Locked out my Netflix account.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's dark.
Mm-hmm.
It is dark. It's very dark. We've had special effects from the guy who did some of the special effects for Hellraiser. doing gory special effects. We've had the F-bomb dropped.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite shocked at that because
it
doesn't feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like Star Trek is the world where people swear.
Well, you've got to think about that. I mean, funnily enough, you were mentioning about eras there, Sean. Thinking about the era it was actually set, it's only about, I think it's 10 years before Kirk.
Mm.
So it's between Enterprise and, I think it's sort of 50 years after Enterprise, that sort of time frame.
Yeah.
I ought to know my specifics really on that, shouldn't I? But yeah, it's around about that.
So
but there has actually been some ambiguity about that as well.
Mm.
But that's another issue.
Is that intentional ambiguity, you think?
I don't know. There have been a couple of canonical questions raised about the series so far, and the writers are saying it's all going to get explained, it's all going to get answered.
Right, okay.
Hold on. But I'm wondering if they've got everything.
I have to say I'm sceptical when, and this is just me personally speaking, but I'm sceptical when writers say, oh, hang on, we will reveal all. Just keep watching, because that kind of happened with Lost. And I won't bang on about Lost because that's a sore spot, but yeah, you just sort of... You just get a bit... Well, I get a bit concerned when I hear them say that, but...
I felt a bit like that. I felt a bit like that when Life on Mars... I know this is straying slightly off topic with science fiction, but...
Life on Mars counts.
Well, Life on Mars really bothered me, because I loved the series. The first series, watched it, and it had all these hooks throughout that... led on to how it was going to lead to its series finale. You thought, fantastic, it's all going to be resolved, it's all going to be self-contained in one series, and that's fine, that's all I need. Then it got to the end of it, and completely copped out. All of those clues you were given all along just went, oh no, it's not that, because we want to have a second series, because it's been so popular, so... And I remember, I was only about, 17 at the time, but being particularly annoyed about it, and went onto the BBC forum and said, I will not be watching the second series, you've completely messed it up for me. I still went back on those words and did watch it when I came out, of course.
Oh, that was Ashes to Ashes, wasn't it?
The end of the second series. No. There were two series of Life on Mars, and then there was Ashes to Ashes, which I've not seen a single episode of.
Yes, it's been quite a while since I saw that. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I thought it did it gave some answers, but you don't want to give everything away anyway. In any series.
But the bugbear is that if you start giving clues throughout that seem to be building up towards something, there has to be some form of payoff to it. If you build it up and you answer all of those, but still leave the overarching ideas kind of just still hanging there, you think, well, what's the point of all of those things you've led up to? Have all just been a tiny self-contained thing, really, which could have been explained in one episode.
Well, you've got character arcs and story arcs, and mini story arcs. So you've got episodic story arcs. I mean, the character arcs were well resolved, I felt, because Sam finally accepted his position, as it were.
But that was in the second, at the end of the second series. What my argument was in the first series, that they had all of those series arcs, you say, building, but turned out in the end not to be series arcs at all, but they're actually easily explained in the last episode, and the whole thing could continue into the second.
I'm wondering if I've actually, in my head, run the first two series together. And this is the danger with likes and Netflix and box sets, is you can do that. You don't get have the weight or the... And I'm wondering if that's what I'm doing then. Yeah, could well be.
There was a bit of a problem I felt with the ending of the second series. It was good. Obviously, you learnt the truth that, spoiler alert, if you've not seen Life on Mars, that he was indeed in a coma and he was going to come out of it, which was the clues that were given all the way through series 1 and Flash's things to do with things with his dad in the 1970s, which would explain why he's created this artificial 1970s world in his mind.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with his dad just ended at the end of series 1, and it kind of all got explained away, but everything else just continued on after that. Then at the end of series 2, they said, yes, he is in a coma, and he's out of the coma, and I was back in the coma again, and it just felt really messy. Yeah. Really, really messy. I thought, you had a good idea, and just for the point of stretching it out so you can have it lasting longer to get the viewing figures in, you've cocked up the whole thing.
Do you want to know what is, for me, an interesting bit of trivia about life on Mars? Connecting to me personally.
Oh, go on.
Well, it's set in 1973, or the first series is certainly set in 1973, which is the year I was born. And the car that hits him in the first episode, the registration is E666 SRJ, and SRJ are my full initials.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us something like the 666 was related to you.
Well, that as well.
And the fact that you said E at the beginning, kind of E666.
E, aye. Oh,
I'm sorry, that was a really poor joke.
Hey,
I'm going to go now.
You. Yes. Anyway,
yes, moving
as Sean
on.
Bean says, bastards. So, obviously, big news this week. We've got the relaunch of, Series 12 of Red Dwarf started last Thursday with the second episode tonight. Have either of you seen it?
No, I haven't.
No.
I have to hold my hand up and say no, I
No,
haven't.
do you know what? That's probably a wise choice. And it pains me to say this because I've been a dwarfer for 29 years since it first came out. 30 years old next year. That's terrifying.
That doesn't seem possible. Yeah.
But we're on Series 12, and it is absolutely. Did you catch Series 11 last year?
Yes.
And Sean?
Parts of it, not all of it, but parts of it.
Right. What were your collective? What did you think about it?
Tired, worn. I dead. The joke's dead. Sorry, but it had its great series at the first two series. They were finding the bite, trying to figure it out, and then series 3, brilliant. They've got it, and it worked for a good couple of series after that. And 6, it's starting to wear down a bit. Series 8, famously complete cack.
Yeah.
And the more recent ones, I don't. It's not needed. It's not really adding anything new to it. And they could do something really fresh and really innovative, which I think they tried to do with the specials that they did when they first went onto the Dave channel. They did those specials. They were trying to do something interesting. The problem is the League of Gentlemen got there first and did it in the movie. Yeah. So it kind of missed the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is that. Plus, there was way too much Coronation Street.
Oh, yeah.
When you don't watch Coronation Street, you don't want to watch it in your last thing sci-fi needs, comedy, sci-fi or otherwise, is soaps.
Yeah. I think for me, with Red Dwarf, like you quite rightly said, Sean, it was getting tired. But what was happening was you were getting tired cast members who were obviously getting visibly older, and then they're trying to counteract that by giving better props and better special effects, or at least better than what they were in the original couple of series. And I mean, you and I were discussing this the other day, weren't we, Stu, that part of the charm and appeal of Red Dwarf was the fact that they didn't take themselves seriously, that they didn't mind that they had rubbish sets or things that didn't work or didn't even look like they belonged in space. So absolutely. You've got this problem here whereby you're trying to make things look fresh and exciting and new, but actually what you're doing is you're turning off your original fan base who liked that to begin. You know, they wanted it to be like that in the beginning.
Well, it's funny, I'm on a couple of Red Dwarf forums, and all you hear banging on all the time is how everyone loves it, and they love the show, and they love the characters, and they're loving the new one, and I'm thinking, why? Because
it's the nostalgia thing, though, isn't it? I mean, I recently read that Chris Barry was thinking of doing the British Empire again. Now I loved. Sorry to go off the sci-fi again, but just briefly, I'll just mention it. That I mean, I loved it when I watched it, the original series. I thought it was really cheesy, but really funny.
Yeah.
But people, the initial reaction to the fact that he might come back and make another British Empire was really positive. You know, people saying, "Oh yeah, I'd love to see Britus again. That'd be wonderful." But what they don't realise is the world has moved on. We don't have the same sort of. I mean, we still have leisure centres, obviously, but the technology isn't there, or is obviously more improved than it was back then. And it's kind of the same thing with Red Dwarf, is that people loved what they saw then, and they loved the characters, and so they want to try and recapture that nostalgia, that memory.
And I think that the personality types, that same with the British Empire, same with Red Dwarf, the personality types that these things are trying to capture, they no longer exist.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I say capture, I mean parody, basically. You know, I mean, they're larger than life characters.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But think about, you know, if The Office, you know, absolute classic. If that was released tomorrow, how many people would be able to relate to it like they did back in the day?
Back then, yeah. And in some ways, it's very similar to what Steve Coogan's still doing by peddling Alan Partridge, which is, I mean, it's great, but it was of its time.
We're going to have an argument now. Because I was thinking, actually, as I was saying, that Partridge was the exception to that, because the character has so much depth, and we've so much to explore with him, and I think he is still very representative of Middle Britain, because the character's evolved over time. You're not convinced.
Well, it depends on what aspects of Middle Britain you mean. In some respects, radio DJs that are just getting a bit old and tired, yes.
Well, I was thinking of Brexiteers, actually, but yeah.
All but gone from the... But they've all but gone from the airwaves these days, and it's all funky young people like Jeremy Dixon. Not particularly good example, but...
Anyway, so moving back onto topic then. So is there anything coming up that either of you are particularly aware of?
Well,
looking forward to?
Apparently, allegedly, there's going to be an international trailer for Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Ooh.
Which should be coming to YouTube, I believe, at the beginning of November.
This is the third trailer, assuming you count the first one.
Oh, hang on, because there was a teaser. So
that's probably the one I'm thinking
I suppose it still
about.
counts, doesn't it? There's been a teaser, a main UK US trailer, and then the international normally covers Japan, Korea, China, and then after that you might then start getting the TV spots, but they normally happen sporadically, so we probably wouldn't pick them up on UK television. We'd probably see the videos on
online.
YouTube, or any other online outlet.
Cool.
Well, on that point, what did you think of the most recent one that came out? It was only a few days ago now. One was released, I believe.
Yeah, I watched it to death. No, genuinely. I can honestly say, and bearing in mind that I was quite young when the original trilogy came out on VHS. I wasn't even born when the first episode 4 came out into the cinema.
Sean Bean, bastard. Some of us remember it.
Yeah, sorry, Stu, to bring that painful memory up. So I haven't seen a lot of trailers for the original trilogy, but I have obviously been following the more recent ones, and I have to say that this is the best trailer I've ever seen. And I don't want to say too much in case people haven't seen it. You know, I don't want to give spoilers, but it's the kind of I think they're very clever. Lucasfilm, I think what they've tried to do is steer you in the direction they want you to think, and the mindset they want you to be in, before you watch the film. I mean, did you get a chance to see it, Sean?
I have sort of seen it. I've not. I saw brief parts of it as a sort of somebody else's reaction to it, but they were talking on over it, so I couldn't really see what was going on at all. Somebody did a comedy reaction thing rather than a real reaction thing. But yeah, I don't really know what to think, to be honest. I didn't see the Rogue One movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Star Wars, and I would have been about, I don't know, how old would I have been?
Let's just not.
No, do. Go on, we want to know.
What this is the only thing that I can remember prior to the more recent ones, but of course the episode 1, when that was first being advertised in cinema. Yeah, I would have been about 10 years old, because it would have been in the late 90s. So
yes, I remember that too.
No. Let's have a rule here. We have no Jar Jar Binks until we're drunk.
Misa, sorry.
But I mean, if you look back at that trailer for episode 1, it didn't seem all that bad. I mean, some of it you thought, oh, this is interesting. Oh, a new Star Wars film. Well, what's going to be in here then? Oh, that's interesting. There's C-3PO. There's something slightly different. There are some things I know, some things I don't. And then you saw the film.
It's like a balloon, like just popped.
Yeah.
It's like.
Ironically, the only two I've actually seen in the cinema would be the most recent. Well, let's say the most recent, the one before the Rogue One film, the Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And
A New Hope.
Sorry.
A New Hope.
A New Hope, yeah. And prior to that, Attack of the Clones. That really put me off it for a while, I've got to say. Oh, I just thought, what the fuck just happened? I have no idea what the fuck. There was supposed to be a story in this somewhere, wasn't there?
George Lucas took your money. That's what happened. Yes.
But that bit I remember. Then afterwards, it's a bit of a blank.
I think, to be fair, if Attack of the Clones was the last one that you'd seen of the prequel trilogy, I can understand why you would have given up for a while and not wanted to see any more.
I did see Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, it was a bit nothing, really. I really didn't care for all that much. I think maybe it's also the age you watch these things as well. I mean, this is the thing that everybody bangs on about, how great movies were and how bad the prequels were and things. Ultimately, this is a generation of millennials, a majority talking about this, and you've got to remember that they're going through a period of their lives where they've got a lot of nostalgia for the original Star Wars films, but not so much the prequels. Start to become more of a for, I think.
Yeah.
It must be a symptom of this whole backlash against the prequels, even though they were shit anyway.
Well, they were. But, I mean, not just that, but there seems to be this thing with millennials, or young people as I call them. I mean, for one thing, they need to understand that sci-fi did not begin in the 70s with Star Wars. There is so much in Logan's Run. I mean, your palms have started flashing, haven't you? Yes.
Only because I'm nervous, Stu.
The original Westworld.
Yes. Okay.
Like, now, you do go back and watch these, and you're absolutely right in what you say. You've got to look at it in context of the time. Now, for example, after watching the recent series of Westworld with my partner Catherine, hello Catherine, I put on the Yul Brynner Westworld movie for her because she loved the series. And she's just saying, "Oh my god, it's so slow. It's like it's taking forever to do anything." Right, okay. It's called atmosphere.
Yes.
And millennials in particular are the worst for this. You have to understand pacing and atmosphere, and you need to get off my lawn.
Do you know, that was one of the things, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It was one of the complaints that I had after seeing The Phantom Menace. and nearly walking out of the cinema, but that's another story. But anyway, a friend of mine who came with me said, "Oh, that's brilliant, one of the best films I've ever seen." I said, "Okay, I take your point, but why don't you come and watch A New Hope? Let's go right now, we'll go and watch A New Hope." And she watched it with me. Same thing. She said, "Well, it was all right, but I thought the other one was better because it was faster and there was more going on and it was more colourful." And yeah, so I think...
How can you absorb things? So when you're watching things at 1,000 miles an hour, how can you absorb it? How can you process it? Or is it just that I'm a bit slow?
No. I think the fairest way of answering it is that you will obviously appreciate the first thing you watch more than anything that comes after. So for her, watching The Phantom Menace, that was the first Star Wars that she'd ever seen. So of course she's naturally going to feel something more than when I show her my grainy VHS copy, as it was back then, of A New Hope with all the old 80s adverts in it. And so yeah, and I tell you, I memorise them. They get ingrained after several watches.
I still occasionally get the old what do you call it, golden syrup advert with the walking spoons. It's just occurring in my dreams for some reason. I don't know why.
Mine's the is it Mr. Soft?
Oh yeah, Mr.
The mints. Is it Treeball mints?
Something soft.
Why is the world in which you're living is so strange?
That's it. Freud did have a field day on that. Anyway.
But yeah, I forgot to ask you, Stu, what you thought of the most recent Last Jedi trailer.
The one I've not watched, you mean?
Exactly. There we go. So that's all I wanted to say. So moving on.
I'm happy to admit that I've not watched it.
On the point that you were just making, actually, I think it's what you come into contact with first. It's ultimately, I think, social conditioning. When you're exposed to media at a certain age, obviously the pacing of things is going to be very, very different. So what you deem to be normal is, of course, going to be different from the previous generation. The problem I had growing up, among many things, which is why I'm such a well-adjusted human being.
That's a whole different podcast, mate.
Yeah, and we'll be here all night if we started on that discussion. But the issue I have is that I grew up with a lot of the TV shows my dad used to watch because they used to be repeated on BBC Two, so you want to watch, I don't know, The Saint, The Avengers, and of course Doctor Who, for which the pacing is a lot different. And like you were also saying earlier in reference to Red Dwarf, the sets are wobbly, the props are rubbish, they even got bubble wrap used as part of the monsters and things, but you can forgive that because the way that
tension sheet.
Some story. Sorry?
Tension sheet.
The tension sheet, quite right. I should call it by its proper name, of course. But so I find it very difficult to get anybody else of my generation into those things. They said, "Oh, you're so rubbish. The it's really boring," was the main one that people said. Obviously, they mentioned the props and the set things, but they said, "Oh, it's really, really boring." But that's just because the pace is different to what more recent films pacing is. I find it quite difficult sometimes to watch mainstream Hollywood films at the moment because I kind of think, well, for my birthday last year, we went to see Batman vs Superman. Mm-hmm. I came up with a splitting headache because it felt so fast paced. I thought, I'm going to get epilepsy if you show me so many images so quickly. Slow down. Tell me a fucking story. You don't need to cram so much into it. Yeah. It's simple. Batman vs Superman, there's your story. You don't have to try and bludgeon me to death with about 1,000 scenes at once. Yeah,
but they tried to cram about 7 or 8 actual films into one film. And, I mean, I know hardcore DC fans who still haven't got a clue what that whole scene with the Flash was about coming out of his screen.
I have no idea.
The dream sequence we know is all about Darkseid. And, yeah. But why even have it in there? You didn't need it at all. But anyway, that film has a whole set of issues. I agree. The one that does it for me is, and as a kid, I was hugely into Transformers. I say as a kid, I've still got quite a substantial collection of Transformers to this day, and I'm very proud of that. Because you don't stop playing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop playing. There you go. That's a quote from someone else. But anyway, so I've still got
Playing
a collection of Transformers. Love the movies. The cartoon. The Marvel comic book. I'm currently rereading that now because I think it's absolutely brilliant. Watch the movies. It's like, no, A, I can't follow it. B, that's not the fucking Transformers because it's not the ones I know.
I'm not gonna hate on number one, Transformers, the first Transformers film that came out. I'm not gonna hate on that at all because I actually really, really enjoyed it. I have to say, and growing up with the cartoon as a kid.
But trying to follow the fight sequences, for example, I literally cannot follow the fight sequences at all. And I've watched that film quite a few times now. I've desperately tried to enjoy it. I can't. It's just too much.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
I
suppose it is. Well, it is a fast-paced film, and it is. Obviously, yes, like we said before, it's catering for a different generation. Someone who, a generation that wants to see things quicker and stronger and with more colour. But I mean, I personally really, really enjoyed it because I think it was that coming back to what we said earlier about what I said earlier about nostalgia, is the fact that you could look at the screen and go, oh look, there's Optimus Prime, there's Bumblebee, and all this kind of thing. In that first film, as soon as the second film came out and that had worn off, and suddenly you're being basically presented with a similar plot, or no, actually that's a bit unfair. Not similar plot, but a similar style of cinematography, and as soon as you start seeing the same things being repeated again, yes, I agree with you that you look at it and think, well, okay, I'm not so struck on this as I was before.
Although I would, without being able to give any specific examples, I would disagree slightly. I do know what you mean by that, but I one thing I want to pick on what you said. One that I don't think it's a question of want and what people want to see. I think it's a question of what people are used to and been conditioned to accept. Well, that's within the mainstream, of course. The great thing about media as it stands now is that there's so much diversity. There's so much out there to please different people. Part of the problem with that, though, is that there's so many different people now in competition for people's attention, so therefore I think that the rate that things go out is much, much faster now, but that's because of just the need for competition and such, and things can't always take its time to develop for a film to be, personally. But then again, I'm a product of my time as well, and I probably watch things at a much faster pace than a lot of other people from, say, generations before.
Me. Yeah, you talk about the diversity, but what I feel is missing is the slower paced movies. I think they don't exist anymore. And one example I can think of, Silent Running. Helen, do you remember me showing you Silent Running? Have you seen Silent Running, Sean?
No, I haven't seen Silent Running yet, no.
Okay, so it's about an hour and a half long. It's set in space, and literally 3 things happen. That's it. Which is about right, isn't it?
That is a fair, summary.
But it's a beautiful film in its own right. It's a work of art. I mean, I'd strongly recommend getting hold of a copy and seeing it, because it is, again, it's this time of its time, and it speaks a lot about the environmental issues that we're facing in the planet, and I think it's still as relevant today as it ever was. But yeah, it is literally, you are watching it for like a quarter of an hour and you're watching someone going and watering plants. But it's shot in such a beautiful way and such an engaging way. And I mean, the characters, arguable point there, are so engaging.
Yeah.
That it works. For me, it works. But they could never, ever, ever make a movie like that these days.
No.
Well, I think that most recent films, it depends on what you're looking for, whether you're looking within the mainstream Hollywood market or whether you're looking films I've seen that have a much slower pace, not quite to the level of Kubrick, but similar in some ways, like Moon, for example. Have you seen Moon?
No.
Yes. Oh, you have to see Moon.
Oh, right, okay.
You have to see Moon.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Is it on Netflix?
I don't know.
I don't think it is. I've got a copy though. I'll lend you it.
Oh, bro, because I need to lend you some Torchwood.
Oh, great. But
you've been outed. Sorry.
Yeah, that has great pacing as well. But that's again not. Although it's a relatively critically acclaimed film, it hasn't hit the mainstream market quite so hard as something like, say, Inception or something like that. But if you look at other areas, Jim, this is going way off the sci-fi topic. Just to talk about two films very briefly. I think are brilliant in terms of pacing. Compliance and Snowtown. Compliance is based on true event story, and in a really brutal way as well. Really, it's very close to the events, about a girl who ends up working in a fast food restaurant, who ends up being sexually assaulted, as a result of what her boss decides to do. I won't spoil it at all, because it's absolutely brilliant, but it's a very slow pace without everything's unfolded very, very slowly. After the first 10 minutes of watching it, I thought, I can't really see how they're going to... Oh, wait, no, they are really building on this, and it went on easy watch. Snowtown, Australian film, again based on true events about the Snowtown murders, but not in the same way as something more sensationalized like a Hollywood film. It's raw, it's difficult to watch, it's a brutal film, and I always say that it's everything's flat throughout all of it. The landscape of Australia where they're shooting, completely flat. The soundtrack is very repetitive and has that sense of dread throughout all of it. The narrative can feel quite flat in places, because it's like watching a poor animal being dragged along a long road for a really excruciatingly long time, but you can't take your eyes away from it. And it works so slowly, and it works absolutely brilliantly. And the last one, to get back onto the sci-fi subject, is the film Primer. Have you ever seen Primer?
No.
No, actually no.
Not heard of.
Probably on. I think it's on YouTube. It's a really low budget film, which just deals with time travel, which of course I would love, but does it in such a brilliant way, and it's such a slow pace too, and it also doesn't spoon feed. A lot of the things they talk about scientifically are very true to a lot of theories that people are working on, and works very gradually. It does get quite complex in places, but it takes its time about it, and I think they made the film for about $7,000. It really didn't cost them all that much at all, but it's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't recommend it more highly. Primer, if you've not watched it, watch it. It's brilliant. It stands up really, really well for a film that's about, I think, just about a decade old.
There you go, listeners. You heard it here first, unless you've heard it already. So wrapping up then, because we've gone on a bit longer than planned, which is great, fantastic. So, Helen, you're looking forward to the Star Wars trailer?
Yes, I am.
Sean, what are you looking forward to in the next coming couple of weeks?
Anything? I don't know. This is difficult. I'm going to have a look at Discovery and see how it's gone. I mean, obviously I should be saying, being a Whovian, I'm looking forward to see what Jedi brings to Doctor Who. But that's not in the next couple of weeks, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but that's a little while off, yeah. And to be honest, I think Who needs a bit of a rest for a bit, because... it does need time to pick up and have a bit of a downtime, because that's what made it so great when it returned anyway. Anyway, I'm not going to big lecture now about that. But
that's a topic of discussion for another time, definitely.
Absolutely.
But
Discovery, I'm going to have a look at that and see if it works.
Top banana.
And yourself?
Well, we've got Thor: Dark World coming out on Thursday.
Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok.
Yes.
Did I say Dark World?
It's all right. Don't worry.
We don't want that coming out again.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok coming out, which should be interesting.
I can't wait. Actually, I've loved the marketing campaign that they've done for Thor Ragnarok, or the sort of going back to what the comic books look like with all the colourful costumes. And this is totally going against what we said earlier about colourful things and lots of fast-paced action in films, but I like the fact that they're bringing a little bit of humour into the Thor series, which I think the Dark World was actually lacking.
I agree. Yes, it was. Well, no, yeah, because you had two funny sidekicks in the thing. You had Darcy and you had your sidekick. No, that was no. So I'm going to disagree.
Well, and I didn't think they were that funny, but that's just.
Well, no, they weren't. You're absolutely right, but they were supposed to be. And of course you got to see what's his face, the professor's pixelated balls.
Now that was funny.
That was. I mean, he's a fantastic actor.
Running around Stonehenge as well. Which I actually did in the cinema go, that's Stonehenge, which probably wasn't the best thing to do in the middle of the cinema.
I know that place.
Yeah, that looks familiar.
But yeah, no. I mean, after so comic book wise, I've been a big fan of Doctor Strange for a long time.
Oh yes.
The movie. Ooh, mixed feelings about that one. That's the whole podcast in of itself. But mixed feelings, let's say, mixed feelings. Ooh. Plus, I hate Cumberbatch.
Now you've got
anyway.
You've overstepped the line now.
Moving on swiftly. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I hated on. I thought it was repugnant. It seems like Marvel have said, people are really responding well to the comedy. Well, yeah, after a slew of dark movies, you need one to break the tension. Fine. But they said, people have responded well to that, so let's cram in any jokes we possibly can every second. Like, let's make every single line a funny line. And it's too much. Even when they come close to having an emotional moment in that movie, they destroy that. And I came out of that movie very disappointed. Very disappointed.
More so than Guardians of the Galaxy 1?
Yeah, well, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was fine because it was at a time when it was needed. Plus, there was more depth to that movie. There was. It took itself more seriously than the second one.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not saying it took itself seriously, but it was closer to it. I'm tentative about Ragnarok.
Okay.
The trailers I've seen, it looks like that might be what they're doing again. Well, Jeff Goldblum's an interesting character in the trailers.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is what I was going to say, you see, because I was going to say because of how well Guardians has done, with how it was received by the public, this is their way they're going with a lot of their other films as well, like Thor and to some extent I would imagine with the Justice League as well, like they have with Spider-Man, they're having him slightly more comedic than previously, but that's to some degree welcome.
Spider-Man's a wisecracker, so he should be. He should be having funny lines. Thor isn't.
Just not dancing badly, that's the only problem.
Well, it's getting to the point that by the time Infinity Wars comes out, Thanos is going to have a song and dance routine.
Yeah. I disagree. I think what they're doing is that they're getting a lot of the comedy out there now, so that when Infinity War arrives, we're going to see a more serious tone. Yeah, I definitely do. I think
it's setting it up for shock.
I think so. Yeah, I think so because it is almost lulling people into that false sense of security. You know, they think, this is how. This is how Marvel is now. We're not like DC. You know, we're not dark and scary, and depressing. Quite frankly, not all the DCs. I'm just going to put that out there. Not all the DCs, but so I personally think that that's what they're trying to sell to people, and then come Infinity War Part 1, I think it's going to get dark.
I really hope that's the case because me personally, they're almost losing me, and I'm definitely on the side of Marvel over DC, although, I will watch both. Except Suicide Squad, I kind of refuse point blank to watch that.
I've still not seen it. No. I had a feeling it was going to be just bollocks when I saw the trailers for it. Everybody saying, you're so excited about it? No.
Oh, the trailer put me off completely. Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. For me, well, I just watched it and sort of went, meh. It was, for me, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't good either. It sort of limped to the finish line, I think.
I've got a slight rule when it comes to these things, and this is very true when Chris Nolan was doing the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't think it was originally meant to be a trilogy, but you can argue with me on that point. I never liked to believe the hype. I'd much rather leave it, let something come out, be out for a while, and if it's good enough, it'll have longevity, and I can watch it later on. I don't need to watch it immediately. This is why, when it comes to trailers and things like that, I can wait. Plenty of other things have been made that I can watch in the meantime and occupy myself with. I don't desperately need to see something instantly, and I think this is a bit of a danger, especially within the fantasy and sci-fi genres. Is there's this big demand? Oh, we've got to have a new thing. We've got to have a new thing all of the time, and people end up being so disappointed because the hype is so big for it. These films have been churned out very, very quickly. The quality isn't good enough to stand up, and I feel that's happening with a lot when it comes to Red Dwarf, Star Wars, Star Trek in a way. I haven't seen Discovery yet, so I'm reserving judgment on that point.
Please do, yes.
Yeah. The DC...
Yeah, I think you'll like it.
the DC universe, of course, I mean, difficult for them to follow on from the Nolan films so quickly afterwards, after how much big hit they went on. Unfortunately, I fear that eventually it will happen to Doctor Who as well.
Like I say, that's quite an extensive conversation for another time, I think, because I honestly think that the good thing about Doctor Who is you can regenerate the entire series by regenerating the character.
This is true. It's happened before, and it's gone through crap times, and it can come back easily.
Exactly, yeah. Let's hope. So yeah, and of course, Wonder Woman is now out on DVD. So because I must go to the cinema, I get to see that this weekend. Yay!
Hooray!
Yeah, I say DVD. I mean Blu-ray, of course.
Now you're just showing off.
I'm down with the kids.
Oh please!
And all that shizzle.
Betamax.
Betamax, right? So Betamax was better than VHS,
and that's a whole nother podcast.
Yes. But on that note, thank you very much. Thank you to my guests Sean Oxnam and Helen Payne for joining today. Thank you for listening and putting up with our banter. And don't forget to tune in next time when we'll be doing more of the same, and we're also going to be discussing the Alien franchise.
Ooh. Can't wait.
Yes, in space no one can hear you scream.
Or complain.
Yes. Take care for now. Bye-bye.